Okay, can you hear me and see my screen?
We can.
Okay, just thought I'd double check before I start talking into nowhere.
Good call.
Oh, I'm excited to be here today. If you have any particular questions as we're going along, we don't have a lot of time, so I'm not sure I'll be able to get to all of them, but if something I say simply needs some clarification, let me know. These days, I specifically work on the Ask the Scientist website. Some of you might know the other people I work with, Russ Barton, Brian Dixon. So we've got a couple other writers on our team that you might be familiar with. And if there's anything I say tonight that doesn't make sense, or you need more information, or you just want to be able to read about it and look at the information later, we have basically everything on the website there. So if you just want to look at why nutrition is important, why supplementation is important, you'll find it all there. So like Nate said, the 3 points I'm really going to talk about today are: why is nutrition important? Next, how do we get that nutrition? Where are we falling short? What are we doing well? And then basically USANA's role in there, what we're doing to help people get the nutrition that they need. So the reality is that as humans, we've never lived longer. You go back a century ago, the average lifespan was 55. You go back 1,000 years ago, and I imagine it was probably people in their mid-30s was the average lifespan. And now suddenly we're living decades and decades longer. And while that's great, obviously these are some of the modern miracles of medicine, nutrition, just simply our different lifestyle choices we make these days. It also has created a number of potential problems that go along with that, certain things that just the human body never had to go through 1,000 years ago. We have simply joints wearing down with age more, and we've kind of had this health continuum that we're constantly going through. I think probably, like I said, when our lifespans were shorter, you quickly go through this and you go from health to death in a really rapid motion. And here, we might live for decades in this frailty or disability type state. And so what the goal is, obviously, is to stay closer to that health side throughout that longer lifespan that we now have. However, the reality is that's not happening. There's a lot of data that shows that in particular, that last decade or so of our lives, we have lots and lots of health problems that come up that people just didn't have to live with before. And so that's one of the roles we're doing at USANA, is really trying to focus our nutrition on helping eliminate some of these different ailments that happen as we age. And what's interesting, and a lot of people don't think about, is some of these things start decades earlier in our life. One you might be familiar with, it's a good example, would be basically bone density. And as you age, you lose a lot of bone density. However, that's determined by how much calcium you were eating in your teens and your 20s and your physical activity during those years. And so it's really important throughout our entire lives to really focus on living a healthy lifestyle and not just trying to treat these ailments once they occur. Here's some data actually showing that. This is US data, but I think it probably applies everywhere. And this isn't talking about the pain and suffering you're going through, but just actually looking at the financial cost of it. And what you'll see is that during that last decade, we're spending more money during that last decade of our life on healthcare than we spent the previous, our entire life up until then. And so that's just an example, a measurable example of some of these problems that come across as we age. So our goal is to bridge that gap between health span and lifespan. We've done a great job of increasing our lifespans through modern science. However, our health span is suddenly suffering as a result of that. And so that's one of the biggest goals of nutrition, is to close that gap so that we can stay healthier longer. When you look at some of the specific areas that we're falling short, you'll find that these chronic degenerative conditions are responsible for 2/3 of all deaths. And you can actually look at some of the science behind those, and you'll find out that a lot of those are preventable through lifestyle modifications. Good one that you might be familiar with would be smoking tobacco. We know that that causes a lot of deaths, and you prevent that by not doing that. So these are other just conditions you might be familiar with, whether that's heart health, brain health, lung health. You'll find that by staying physically active, by maintaining a healthy weight, by getting the micronutrients and macronutrients we need throughout our lives, as well as a bunch of other small things that we can be doing, not staying out in the sun too long, because obviously sun causes damage to the skin. There's a lot of lifestyle things we can do. And you'll find that of these top conditions, it ranges anywhere from 70 to 95% of them are preventable through lifestyle changes. This is actually looking at some of these individual risk factors. I mentioned smoking because that's the single highest risk factor you can do. But there's other things like high blood pressure, obesity. And when you look at this list here, you'll find that bottom half, while it's smaller numbers in comparison to the smoking and high blood pressure, you'll see that all of those are dietary factors. Things like eating too much sodium, not eating enough omega-3 fatty acids, abusing alcohol, not eating enough fruits and vegetables, which provide fiber and micronutrients. And so these are some of these lifestyle choices that we can either choose to do well or poorly that will affect the rest of our lives. So the reality, just kind of in a short summary here, is that health is a function of how we live our lives. There's lots and lots of research I look at. I love sports nutrition and was at a conference just recently, and they were even undergoing some of their research on these same things that the researchers had looked at in the last year. And just in so many areas, health is really what we make of it in a lot of ways. So what is proper nutrition? I think we can agree that the research shows that nutrition is important, but what is that? So I think traditional wisdom, we know we're supposed to eat fruits and vegetables, probably eat lots of whole grains that have fiber in it, some extra protein. However, how many of us really do that all the time? So I put together, some of you might have seen this before, I put together what I call a perfect meal. We've got the fries as our vegetable, we've got some meat in there, we've got our grains. And the problem with this, obviously not an actually perfect diet, is that we get 880 calories, so we're at half to a third of our calories for the day, but we've barely touched some of our micronutrient needs. And then you look at our sodium levels are really, really high also for that amount. So the problem is we're not doing generally a good job of choosing the right foods. And even when we eat healthier foods, you'll find that most of us are still deficient in key nutrients. Some of these nutrients, one of the biggest ones is vitamin E. 97% of women, 89% of men are deficient in vitamin E. And what these percentages are, to hit that 100% mark on these, or to hit the amounts that you're not deficient, that 100% mark on your labels, those are just bare minimum amounts to avoid some of the deficiency diseases that you probably heard about, whether that's, I mentioned earlier with calcium shortages that can lead to osteoporosis. However, those simple 100% marks on our food labels that we're still falling short of aren't enough. And so that's what I spend a lot of time doing with my research. I look at those 100% marks on the label, and then we actually look at the research done over the last few decades, and you try to determine what the actual goal should be. And so for vitamin C, you'll see that number is about 60 milligrams. And what you find, if you notice that little red dot there indicating the RDA, that's that 60 milligram mark, and it helps prevent scurvy and helps make sure we get our collagen synthesized in our body. However, if you're only hitting that 60 milligrams a day mark, you might find that you're still tired because vitamin C at higher levels is responsible for energy production. And then at even higher levels, it plays a role in antioxidant activity that's related to cardiovascular health. And so instead of just a bare minimum 60 milligrams, most of the research shows it's a little bit of a range, but you're seeing 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams of vitamin C per day. And over time, that goes out of our blood, and then we have to get it again. And so you'll find that to keep that antioxidant activity responsible for cardiovascular health, we have to constantly be getting a higher dose of vitamin C. And so that's a lot of the research I do. You'll find the same research holds true for vitamin E that I mentioned earlier, that so many of us were deficient in even that bare minimum RDA amount. But there's even extra cardiovascular benefits beyond that. Holds true for iron, for calcium, for all the different B vitamins. There's extra benefits beyond that minimum amount that we're still falling short of. So here's kind of that vitamin C comparison. That RDA is 40 to 125 milligrams, depending on your age and gender. Like I said, the research is showing over 1,000 milligrams a day. But to get 1,000 milligrams, you're looking at 10 glasses of orange juice, or about 10 oranges per day. And so it's really a lot of extra calories for one. We can't get that many calories in our body, as well as just we're falling really, really short. You know, that's why, that's hard to get this amount. In the case of vitamin D, you'll see that little image of milk there. Milk is often fortified with vitamin D, but other than that, there's very, very few foods that have vitamin D in it. The best way we get vitamin D is from the sun. When the sun hits our skin, our body can synthesize vitamin D. However, just like I mentioned earlier, being in the sun too much can cause skin damage, so we put on sunscreen and then that inhibits vitamin D production. And so it's just one that is really, really hard to get. You'll kind of see conflicting information, but typically vitamin D or iron are listed as the two most common deficiencies worldwide. I think if we did more vitamin D measurements, it would typically be the highest deficiency worldwide. There's just very, very few of us that get enough vitamin D from diet or sun alone. So if you want to get enough milk to get your vitamin D, you're looking at over 2 gallons of milk a day. Just a ridiculous amount that would be really, really hard to get. So that's one of those items that really has to almost be supplemented to get enough. And in addition to those, like I said, this holds true for many, many different nutrients. You'll find that if you look at heart health, you've got fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, phytosterols, can actually reduce the incidence of heart problems by 16%, is what that number is showing. Metabolism, through supplementation, you can reduce the risk by 12%. Eye health, you look at lutein and zeaxanthin, and there's also some benefit from, you look at beta carotene, omega-3 fatty acids as well, that can help reduce the likelihood of some of the eye health problems we have as we age by 1/3. And then calcium again. So there's a lot of important things we can do through dietary supplementation to help reduce the risk of these different chronic degenerative problems that we have over our lives. The reality is what you put in your mouth matters. And through diet alone, it's really, really hard to get everything that we need. And so that leads us to supplementation. I'm not saying that supplementation is the magic key. You have to make sure that you're also doing all these other things I mentioned earlier. Not smoking, not abusing alcohol. You should be exercising regularly. You also need to eat a healthy diet, because supplements aren't going to make up for the fiber and some of the other micronutrients and phytochemicals that you can get through your diet. But they do play a key role in the vitamins and essential minerals that you need. If you want to look at some of this research that I've been talking about that shows these benefits that you can get from these supplements or nutrients at different levels, you can actually go to Ask the Scientists. Just search health benefits of supplements or health benefits of nutritional supplements. It's got about 800 different studies on there. We have lots and lots of others we reference all the time, but this is just a list of some of the ones that we've compiled and categorize them by benefit so that you can look at those. Finally, what's USANA's role in this? I'm going to look at here a little bit what we're doing to help, in addition to encouraging people to eat healthier and live a healthy lifestyle, what we're doing from a product point of view to help solve some of these needs that people have. So I've been a part of the research and development group at USANA I was part of that group for about 5 years before moving on to work specifically on Ask the Scientists and more consumer education. And our mission statement, and when we were developing products, was to create the highest quality, and science-based products. Quality and science were really our two keys in everything that we offered. So I'm going to go through and give you a highlight of some of the science and how we look at products when we're starting. First thing we do is we look at some of the research that exists out there, some of the published research from universities or other research groups, and then we'll take that and do some of our own internal clinical studies. Because what we found is just because it worked well in one research study or two or even a dozen of them, you've got to make sure it works in your formula and your population that you're working with. And so you have to actually do the clinical studies rather than just guesswork to know if it's going to be a good product. There's a lot of products out there that I think look good on a label, but honestly, it's really easy to put together a good label for a supplement. The hard work is actually doing some of the research behind it and finding the quality ingredients. So here's a number of different groups we've worked with over the years. You might be familiar with Preventable. That was initiated partially with a study that we did with Boston University on grapeseed extract and vitamin C. What we showed is actual benefits in circulation through the small veins inside the arms and the fingertips and the toes is what we were seeing mostly. And so these are some of the research studies we've looked at to create the different products we have over the years. If you want to actually go find some of the research, we have all of our published research as well as some of our own internal research. Once again, go to Ask the Scientists, just search research and you'll see some of our newest research highlighted on there as well as research over the past couple decades. Next, I'm going to give you a highlight of some of the quality steps that we go through to make sure that not only is the product good on paper and good in the lab, but you're getting a good final product at your home as well. So quality is always a big concern. If you go around and look at nutritional supplement news or health product news, you've probably seen some of these problems before, whether you've got tainted supplements or supplements that don't contain the ingredients they say. It's a real thing, an area of concern. You'll see even government agencies having to step in and do regulation because people aren't regulating themselves well. And so at USANA, we go through a number of different steps. You have to have actually the right formulas as well as quality manufacturing, quality ingredients, and then constantly be monitoring it because even the best intentions can have problems. And so you have to monitor it all the time to make sure that nothing goes wrong during this process. This is all that's actually required of USANA in the United States to manufacture supplements is just a food certificate, which is exactly what it sounds. This is basically what a restaurant would have anywhere. However, we've obviously gone above and beyond that. We're a registered drug establishment. In addition to that, we have a number of different certifications from other countries around the world that actually come in and audit our facilities. This one on the left is from the Australian government, but being open in the 22 countries now. I'm always forgetting where we're at because we are adding more all the time, but many of these actually come in and audit our facility and audit our products. And that's one of the benefits of being a global company is we know that we're always meeting the highest standards no matter who might be looking at our products. We adhere to good manufacturing practices set forth by the NSF. And they actually are one of the other groups that come in and audit our facilities as well. In addition to the NSF certification, we have several products that are tested by the NSF to make sure they don't contain banned ingredients for sports so that our athletes can take it, which I'll touch on a little bit more later. We have kosher certified products, which means they're inspecting our entire facility, not just these products, but they go through our whole facility and actually audit our facility to make sure we're meeting the cleanliness standards. So even if you may or may not need kosher products, they're actually looking at the cleanliness of the whole facility. So that is something that's important, as well as kosher or halal certification that we offer as well for a number of different products. We're a member of the United Natural Product Alliance, which is just another third-party guarantee that we're actually doing what we say we're doing, and you don't just have to take our word for it. And that's some of the steps we go through to make sure that we're meeting all the different possible regulations and the strictest out there to offer a great quality product. Internally, this is a picture of our building. We have our offices there, as well as the back half is warehouse and manufacturing. And internally, in addition to manufacturing our own products and bottling our own products, we do all of our own quality control as well, in addition to the third-party testing that I've talked about. We do samples of all of our raw ingredients, as well as all of the finished products. The ingredients are tested, and then again, the final products are tested. They're looking for potential contamination from not only banned substance products for sport, but things that you might not think of: fungi, mold, yeast, bacteria, other things that can potentially contaminate raw ingredients or products along the way. So we test for all of these before manufacture in the raw ingredients and after manufacture. And only after that it's gone through all of our analytical equipment and passed these tests do we put our stamp or guarantee on it and actually make it available for customers to purchase. I mentioned the NSF earlier, how they test a number of our products. We also use a group called Informed Choice. They're another banned substance control group that tests different products, and we work with them to make sure that all of our products would be safe for athletes to take. That's why at this point, I think we have over 2,000 professional or elite athletes that take our products, because we guarantee that they're not going to have to worry about them from banned substances, and also that they'll meet the nutritional needs that they have. And those are all the different steps we go through to making sure that we do provide these high quality and science-based products. And that's just a touch on everything. Kind of to review, basically, nutrition is important. It's related, in addition to some of our other lifestyle choices, to our long-term health, and what we do young in our life impacts us decades later. Proper nutrition requires eating well, but also, for most of us, is going to require supplementation as well. Unless you are eating, a ridiculous amount of food and perfect every single day of the week for your entire life, it's going to take something a little bit more. And that's what we try to offer at USANA, is a way to supplement your healthy lifestyle. With that, I'll just leave you a picture of our lab. Got some of our scientists that you might be familiar with and know. This lab is right outside of our office area, and we're in and out of there all the time, and I just want to thank all of you. And I've got a great way, if you ever have any questions about the products, go to Ask the Scientist. You can log in using your associate ID and your password. Or if you're new and not familiar with the company, you can actually ask somebody you know that's familiar, that's part of the company, and they can help send questions directly to my team, and we can help answer any questions you have about products or just general nutrition. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions for me, Nate, or anything else you wanted to follow up on?